do. It's no use deluding oneself with false hopes.
What do you mean?
Oh, my child. Oh, my poor child. Oh, how shall I break it to her?
Just tell her.
Oh, all right. My little bride. It was to have been.
Was to have been?
Yes, you never can be mine.
Oh, so glad.
Hang on. Oh, I have just ascertained that by the Mikado's... that by his law, when a married man is beheaded, his wife is buried alive.
Buried alive?
Yes, buried alive. Buried alive. It's a most unpleasant death.
But who did you get that from?
The Bee Gees.
The who?
No, not the Who. Some old rocker. Pooh Bah. Remember him? He's my solicitor.
But he may be mistaken.
Well, so I thought. So I consulted the Attorney General, the Auditor General, the Cook Islands Tax Commissioner. They're all of the same opinion. Bury it. I've never known such unanimity on a point of law in my life.
Darling, I don't want to appear selfish. And I love you with all my heart. In fact, I don't think I've ever loved anyone else half as much. But you see, when I agreed to marry you, I had no idea that I should be buried alive in a month.
Nor I. It's the very first I've heard of it.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, it does make a difference. Of course.
You see, buried alive, it's such a stuffy death.
I call it a beast of a death.
You see my difficulty, don't you?
Yes, and I see my own. If I insist on you carrying out your promise, I doom you to a hideous death. If I release you, you marry Coco at once.
Here's a howdy-do, if I marry you. When your time has come to perish, then the maiden whom you cherish must be slaughtered too. Here's a howdy-do, here's a howdy-do.
Here's a pretty mess. In a month or less, I must die without a wedding. Let the bitter tears I'm shedding witness my distress. Here's a pretty mess. Here's a pretty mess. Here's a state of things. To her life she clings. A matrimonial devotion doesn't seem to suit her notion. Burial it brings. Here's a state of things. Here's a state of things. With a passion that's intense, I worship and adore. But the laws of common sense we oughtn't to ignore. If what I said is true, 'tis death to marry you. Here's a pretty state of things. Here's a pretty howdy-do. Here's a pretty state of things. A pretty state of things.
Here's a howdy-do.
Here's a howdy-do. Here's a howdy-do. Here's a howdy-do. Matrimonial doesn't seem to suit the notion. Burial it brings. Here's a pretty state of things. Here's a pretty howdy-do. Here's a pretty state of things. A pretty state of things. Here's a howdy-do. Here's a howdy-do. For if what he says is true, I cannot marry you. Here's a pretty, pretty state of things.
Ah! Wait, here's a slippery slope. If you both elope, chippy chop or tune that's clammy, either way it's a double whammy. Couldn't really cope. Not a lot of hope. Whoa, worse than any soap.
With a passion that's intense, I worship and adore. But the laws of common sense we oughtn't to ignore. If what I said is true, 'tis death to marry you. Here's a pretty state of things. Here's a pretty how-do-you-do. Here's a pretty state of things. A pretty state of things.
Here's a howdy-do.
Here's a howdy. Here's a howdy-do.
Here's a howdy.
For if what I say is true, I cannot marry you. Here's a pretty, pretty state of. Here's a pretty, 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 pretty state of things. Here's a pretty how-do-you-do.